Jambo, everyone. And Jambo in Swahili is hello, it's a greeting. And so for our live audience here, so let me hear you say Jambo.
Jambo.
Jambo, good. And Jambo to our listening audience, thank you for all of our supporters if you're joining in. And today this is a talk about Kwanzaa. And we realize that we are, what, now 19, 20 days into January. 22 days to be exact into January. And I think this is still an ideal time for us to talk about Kwanzaa. The reason why we're here today is to 22 days later to still celebrate Kwanzaa and to talk about how do we live the principles of Kwanzaa 365 days of the year. I think what typically happens is that we get caught up in the ritual and the celebration and the ceremony of Kwanzaa, which is typically, well, it begins December 26th and goes all the way until January 1st, and then we forget. We've had a good time for 7 days, and then after the 7th day, it's like, okay, we're done until December. And it should not be that way. Kwanzaa should be celebrated all 365 days because that is an opportunity to celebrate African heritage and unity and culture. And to know that there was negative feedback about Kwanzaa, it shows that we as a community, and when I say community, that is everyone, no matter what ethnicity, religion, whatever practices, community is everyone. And Kwanzaa is definitely an opportunity for everyone in the community to come together. So I'm really excited to be here to set the record straight on what is Kwanzaa and why it is so important to all communities and why this is a celebration that everyone can be a part of. So let's just start with a little bit of history. Kwanzaa began in the 1960s by Dr. Malana Karinga, who at the time was not yet a university professor, but an activist in his community. And he was also and still is known as being a Black nationalist. And so being a Black nationalist, I think sometimes can trigger and bring, for some people, a bad feeling like, oh, that's a troublemaker, and that is not true. A Black nationalist is someone who is very proud of their Blackness, very proud of their culture, someone who knows the history of their culture that goes back before we were enslaved souls out of Africa, and just simply you're just very proud. And you represent, and typically as a Black nationalist, you're going to always be wearing something that identifies or to show your pride in your culture. So be it our hair, be it the jewelry that we wear, the colors that we wear, the different fashion styles. We're mixing African garb with American garb, and we're making that our own style. That is Afrocentric, and that is a part of being a Black nationalist. And so Dr. Karenga created Kwanzaa as a way of uniting and empowering the African American community at that time. And so this was the 1960s. And so we see historically that Kwanzaa came about at the heels, I'll say the heels, of the Watts Rebellion. And so if you don't know what the Watts Rebellion is, pull out your phones, check out. That was a heck of a time. And that it was during that time that you saw the Black communities in California, and this is where the Watts Rebellion took place, really began to take a stance and become very vocal in showing Black pride. And so this was Dr. Karenga's, I guess, response to that. Rather than take to the streets and loot and fight, we needed to bring healing into the community. And bring a sense of pride rather than using our anger to tear down the community. And so thus now we have Kwanzaa, which is, it's somewhat of a holiday, at least in most Black communities, but it is not a religious holiday. Yet it has a very spiritual tone to it. Does that make sense? So it does not bring in, however you choose to acknowledge your higher power or the higher power. But instead, Kwanzaa it ties with the motherland, which is what? Where's the motherland? Africa, or Akibalan, right? So it ties in with the harvest, those dates of December 26th to January 1st in the motherland in West Africa and East Africa. The people of Africa are bringing in their harvest. So they're reaping what they've sown. So the coffee beans, the rice, the corn, the fruits, the vegetables, that's harvest time in the motherland. And so we're going to talk today about how the harvest time in the motherland, Akibalan, or Africa, ties in with Kwanzaa, and we're going to talk about those 7 principles and how those 7 principles are very much things that we need to do 365 days of the year, and not just those 7 days. So while in Africa there are big festivals during the harvest time to thank the Most High for bringing in such a bountiful harvest so that everyone in the villages can eat and in the region can eat, we are back on this side talking about what we need to do to be a people of one, and to continue to show pride in who we are. And so Kwanzaa comes from a Swahili phrase, Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruits. So there you have that theme, that tie-in to harvest time in the motherland. And so it's not, and let's be clear, it is not an alternative to Christmas. It is not a alternative to Hanukkah. It is not an alternative to Yom Kippur. It is a week of celebrating the pride, the unity, the history, the culture, the empowerment of the peoples of Africa and those who are here in America as African Americans. So let's talk about those 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which are known as the Nguzo Saba. That means the 7 principles. Karinga started the top of, or the number 1 principle would be umoja. Can you say umoja? Umoja. Does anyone know what a umoja means? What are we doing today? Well, we're here today sitting in unity. So umoja means unity. So that's the first principle. The second principle, and I've been celebrating Kwanzaa for like 100 years, right? So the second principle, still my tongue gets caught up. Kujichagulia. Can you say it with me? Kujichagulia. Good. It means self-determination. So after unity, we come together, and then it is that self-determination that allows us to sit and be and work and live in unity, self-determination. And then the third principle would take us to Ujima. Can you say Ujima? Ujima. Good. It means collective work and responsibility. So you can see that each day we're building upon what our focus should be, what a real community should look like. We're coming together in unity. Once we come together, it is self-determination that brought us together that will keep us together. And we're going to break each one of these down. And then on the third day, we need to be focused on collective work and responsibility. So that when we do that on the fourth day, now we can move on to Ujama. Can you say Ujama? Ujama. Yes. It means cooperative economics. So, unity of the people, self-determination that we are going to be the people that we are truly. And we are from a great people. We are not from enslaved souls. That is not the beginning of our being. And so once we come together to determine who we are, which means that we're writing our own narrative, we're creating our own greatness. We're reliving our greatness. We're not going to just focus on that part of our history that had us as enslaved souls. And then the collective work and responsibility. That means that's sort of like the glue And think about these things because I want to hear from you. So that collective work and responsibility, that is what is going to keep us together in unity as a people. And that means that in order to be productive, the reality is we need cooperative economics. We need to bring monies, a portion of our individual monies, we need to put that together as a community to do things so that we can have our own things. That is what a true community is about. It is self-sufficient. It is dependent only upon, as much as it can be, of itself, in and of itself. So that the next thing, which is the fifth principle, is Nia. Say Nia.
Nia.
And Nia is a very common African and African American name, and it means purpose. And so the fifth day we focus on, we celebrate what is our purpose. Not our purpose as an individual, but what is our purpose as a community? Because if you know your purpose as an individual, then you have something really great that is needed in the community. So then the community can easily define its greatness and live out its greatness because it takes each and every one of us. So Nia. On the sixth day, that's going to bring us to Kuumba. Can you say Kuumba?
Kuumba.
Kuumba, which means creativity. And we are such a creative people. I am looking at all of you, and I'm looking at the different hairstyles, how we are showing our independent styles, our personalities, how we dress, how you talk, how you do what you do, how you walk, how you live, how you work. That's all creativity. That's when you think about, let's just talk about Hollywood. If just saying Hollywood, saying social media. If you really are in tune, you see how much we, as people of African descent, influence fashion, music, art. That is our creativity. That is what Hollywood makes billions of dollars off of. And so when I start talking about Ujamaa, when I go back up to day 4 and start talking about cooperative economics, then we start to squirm because we can't embrace fully that concept of us pooling our monies together so that we can have some of that power or have some words of influence other than just what we do. How about if we were working in those executive spots that made those calls? How about if we had our own production companies? How about if we became writers and producers? That is the cooperative economics that we need to move towards. And then on the 7th day, Imani. Imani. Another common or very popular African and African American name, which means faith. So those are the 7 principles. I'm trying to think, do I want to talk about the symbols and then go back to the principles? I think I'll cover the symbols. So thank you, Sister Dr. Coral, who I think and probably Councilwoman House helped to set this beautiful Kwanzaa table. This is what a traditional Kwanzaa table looks like. Kwanzaa also has 7 symbols. One, and it's the only, but we could say that the crackers here are representing corn. The first symbol of Kwanzaa is corn. And the corn, mazeo, say mazeo, means crops. And so the corn, it's ordinarily, well, no, let me go back, I'm sorry. The crops are what comes in from the harvest. So fruits, vegetables, nuts, those are the things that typically are being that come in during harvest time in the motherland. And so those are symbolic of at the African harvest celebrations that go on, and the rewards of productive and collective labor, because that's all done by the people in each village. It's not one person's responsibility. If we're going to eat, we all have to get out and bring in the harvest. The second symbol would be mkeka, and we're using this kente cloth as the mat. Mkeka means mat, and the mat is symbolic of our traditions and history, and therefore that's the foundation of which we build. So just as everything for Kwanzaa is sitting on this cloth, which would make this cloth sacred, the cloth is the mkeka for today, or the mat. Now, the main symbol for Kwanzaa is what we call the kanara. This is a kanara. It means candle holder. And the candle holder is symbolic of our roots, our parent people, and continental, what we call continental Africans. So if it were not for them, we would not be here. And so we use this kanara to represent our roots. The muhindi. Muhindi is the corn, which now I can say the wafers here, it looks like a Ritz cracker, that we can say can be used to symbolize corn. Corn is very prevalent in the African tradition. And so here, the corn is symbolic of our children and of our future, which they embody. And I think you just got a copy of the symbols that I'm talking about. And then we have the kikumbe cha umoja, which these we have 2. Usually it's just one. It represents the unity cup. And at traditional Kwanzaa celebrations, we pour libations into the unity cup, and we all take a sip from the unity cup to show that that we are one, and that unity cup is a symbolic. It's symbolic of the foundational principle of Kwanzaa and the practice of unity, which makes everything possible in our community. So what I'm going to ask that we do, because normally, oh, and I stopped. Hi, welcome, hi. Zawadi is the 6th principle. Also, sort of a common name for males in the African American community. Zawadi means gifts. And so normally there would be some gifts on the table, and these would be symbolic of the labor or the work and love of parents and the commitments made and kept by the children. So even in our tradition, in the African tradition and in the African American tradition, we look to our children, or we try to include them in what we are doing, so that when they become adults, that they will carry on our traditions. So we have something, we honor them. I like to call them little people. You all are medium-sized people, right? So you're becoming young adults, and then you'll be the big people. But it is good that you're here, and that you just willingly come and gather together to come and you find unity. And so that is what the adults do. We honor and we acknowledge the presence of our younger people, because we know that they are an extension of our ancestors who have gone on before. And we acknowledge that our ancestors come back through us, and more so through you, our youth. And then the seventh principle or symbol would be the Yushuma Saba, and these are the 7 candles. The Mashuma Saba means the 7 candles, and again, these are all symbolic of the Naguzu Saba, which are the 7 principles. And so we have 3 green candles, which represent the land of Akibulan, or Africa. And then we have, and for the future. So the land, the green represents the land and the hope of the future. The red, the one in the middle, which is the black candle, represents our people, all of us together in unity. And then the red represents the struggle or the blood of our people. We will never progress as a people if we forget from whence we've come. So we recognize the struggle. And recognizing does not mean that we find pity or wallow in pity. We acknowledge it, and actually we use it to strengthen us. We use that to bring us together. So it is that red, it is the shedding of the blood of those enslaved souls that we come together and we acknowledge the strength of the people. Because out of that, all of those stories that we know, look at us. We're still here. You're in university, you're studying to get degrees, you have dreams of whatever your future careers will be, and they're not just dreams. They will come true. Takes hard work and effort, but they are possible. And that is because of people who shed their blood, lost their lives, so that we could sit in these spaces that we are sitting in right now. So what I'm going to ask, because normally on Kwanzaa, when we're celebrating, we light a candle each day. So I'm going to begin by lighting the middle candle, which represents we as a people. And then I'm going to ask who will come from this table to light one of our green candles.
We just started eating, so.
Okay.
Y'all look too busy.
Who will come and light one of our red candles? And as we're lighting these candles, let's be reflective of our individual families. Let's think about our ancestors who have gone on, like maybe our grandparents, aunts and uncles. Some parents have already gone on. Who will come and light another candle for us?
Dr. Cheese.
Dr. Tees, come on up. This one. Sister Gretchen, will you come and light a candle for us, please? Thank you. Have two more. No, come on. Our final candle. All of our candles are lit, our Kanara, and we'll take just a few moments to be quiet, to contemplate upon the flames, to perhaps say a prayer, to think about what we as a people today will commit to before we leave the Murdoch today, because this is what Kwanzaa is truly all about. We are thankful today that we are a proud people, that we come from a glorious past. And though there are many that would try to destroy us as individuals, as a community, as a people, that still we rise. That no matter what our struggles, our challenges, we have overcome, we are still overcoming, we will continue to rise. We are humbled and we are grateful for the sacrifices that our foreparents, our grandparents, our parents, have made. We do not take it for granted that we are able to be in spaces that our ancestors were never able to be in. And when we come into these spaces, we enter into these spaces with humility and with honor and with dignity and with pride. We are humbled by those sacrifices. We are influenced and inspired by those sacrifices. And most of all, we enter into all spaces with a heart of gratitude. We are thankful that we are able to come into these spaces and not be rejected or turned away because of the color of our skins or the way that we choose to wear our hair. We are very proud, and we hold our heads up high, and we're conscious of the tones of our voices, knowing that the way we speak can give power, can give life or death, and we choose love and life over death and rage and anger. And so as we come to the end of this Kwanzaa celebration, I'm going to ask Councilwoman House if she would come and give a water offering, please. And this is a common African practice that we do to acknowledge our ancestors who have gone before us, because we know that water is the source of all life. And so we are very thankful for their lives, for our lives, for the lives to come, for the lives who are not yet here, but are soon coming and are on the way. And for that, we are very grateful. Thank you. And so now, I think we can open up the floor to any questions, and I don't know, maybe even online we will watch, there could be questions that we're happy to answer. If you move closer to ensure that we're
All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. This was beautiful and meaningful and significant, I think. The first question that came to mind for me as you were speaking was, as you talked about just the history of Kwanzaa and its significance in Black nationalism, Black cultural pride, and all of those sorts of concepts. I think a lot of people just don't understand the difference between Black nationalism, Black cultural pride, and concepts of supremacy. So can you help to clear that up for people that don't understand, and why Black pride is so important for us as a people and community?
First of all, supremacy is, I think, something far away from we as a people. We do not have yet the economics, the collective economics that would allow us to even, we're still focusing, and I think I did say yet, because it is coming. It takes economics to put you in a position of power. And so, and for those others that may trigger, economic power for we as a people would only be able to raise us to the level of being able to be more influential in this lived Black experience in America. Not to take over America. I long for the day when we realize as a people that we already own a great continent called Akibulan or Africa, and that we will invest in the mother country and strengthen those ties both there and here in America. But so when we talk about supremacy, that is not, first of all, anything that is a historical experience for us as a people before those enslaved souls were brought here. We've always been about unity. We've always embraced and loved and cared for others, so much so that sometimes we forget to love and care for ourselves. So supremacy is not a part of our DNA as a people. But if it seems like some people might be threatened by having pride in who we are, and I'm not sure how to address that. It is the other's problem, not ours. It will not stop us from being who we are, which is who we have always been. And so if they're angry because we choose not to be in the image of our oppressor, not our problem. We will continue to wear our hair any way that we want to, wear our bright colors, project ourselves to the world with I think a beauty. It is a defiance, but it is beautiful. But it is not threatening. Some seem to think so, but why would one be threatened when one is being themselves, unless there is something truly that other people are concerned about? But it is not about supremacy. It is about just being ourselves. And I think today we are in a time where we're talking about being your authentic self and living your authentic life. And I think as a whole, that is what we're doing. And we're doing that for ourselves. And because that is who we are, not to invade upon anyone else's culture, or this is us. We're just being us. So let us just be us.
Yes. The next question is, I'm just taking us through the 7 principles. And I just want to put out there, if anyone in the audience has any questions as well, please just shoot your hand up and we will call on you to ask your question as well. So in terms of Ujoma and that concept of unity, what does it mean for us to be united in community as a people? And where and how do we make spaces and places for that in communities like Flagstaff?
So what does it mean for us to come together in unity? It means just this, what we're doing today. It means, you know, traditionally what we have done on Sundays. We come together in our worship spaces. We come together for family dinner. And I think most of us know that family dinner is not just the family, it's the neighbors across the street, is Tia and them people and our people and her friends. It is the African tradition of the village coming together in any spaces, be it the concert hall, be it the club, you know, be it the dining hall. We're here at the Murdoch. It's just when we all come together and gather together. What was that second part?
How do we make spaces and places for that in a community like Flagstaff?
We just do it. And that's what we've always done. We just do it. It does not have to be a formal space. You know, we'll crowd. I've been in a living room, a small living room, and 30 of us are in a small living room coming together, doing what it is that we do. And I think, you know, sometimes it's obvious that, I don't know, is that envy? That people have a problem with that. I mean, I get the concern that may cause back in the day. You know, the people might be planning something. And I do think that we do need to use these spaces to come together to plan something, and the planning of something, that something should be us coming together, the collective economics, the how do we support one another, how can we be better sisters to other sisters, how can we support the brothers, how can we become a better community?
Bulia. I can never say that one either, but that's as good as I can get it. Can we talk briefly, because we're talking about self-determination, defining ourselves, sharing our stories, speaking for ourselves. So I want to talk briefly about the new African American AP courses that are being introduced across the country, and specifically what just recently made news when Florida refused to adopt the course for being what they called unnecessary, and they declared it inaccurate. So why are courses like this important?
To set the record straight. Perhaps if whomever these individuals were that made the negative comments about us coming together today, where everyone was welcomed, maybe they should have come. It is still apparent that America still has a lot to learn about African Americans that they still do not know. And I think it's very sad. You know, we have Asian American history we're learning. Mexican history, everyone's history, but Black, African, and African American history. And I think a lot of it is because America does not want to acknowledge that we as a people have a history before Plymouth Rock landed on us. And so,
Yeah.
and that history would expose the fact that every other culture got their culture from a Kibulan.
Let's get into it. What does it mean for us to live? I already asked this question actually, so let me go on to the next one. We've often said that what we do for the least of those, we do for all. And we as a group, the Live Black Experience Project, have often said that you know, we do this because the Live Black Experience is the Flagstaff experience. It is the American experience. I'm wondering, do you find this collectiveness, this idea of collective work and responsibility, unique to the Black community? Or are there just aspects of it that are uniquely done by us?
What we do when we come together and how we come together.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, that's a cultural. That's just who we are as a people. And I will always go back to the fact that out of we as a people, out of that place called the motherland, Akibulan, Africa, comes all cultures, comes all ways of living. And so I guess it is unique. What we do, how we do what we do, how we have the just natural ability to embrace and adapt. And it influences, and then it's copied. So I guess it is original. But in answering that, at the same time, I'm perplexed because this should be how every human lives. The fact that every day we're in this place called Flagstaff, which is predominantly European American, but we adapt, we learn how to live and work and play, which is a Flagstaff slogan, with others, but yet others have a problem with coming to live, work, and play with us. They have a problem with understanding us, but yet they are intrigued by us, and others will come in to learn just enough and take it and go. So here again, the answer, we are who we are naturally by creation. And I think in this day and time, it seems like it is rather rare and unique, and so that's pretty sad that we as humans cannot all be like us.
Well, I'll share, you know, in part I asked that question because we so often as this group come up against that question of why do we need a Live Black Experience project? Why do we have to just talk about that? Or why does a Black community need a space within this community? And those sorts of arguments about what we're doing, and having to validate that in terms of the broader community, that what we're doing for the Black community of Flagstaff that's gone unseen and unrecognized for so long, we're not just doing for us. Even the things that we are doing to advance our culture cannot be just for us, because we're doing it for the sake of a broader community. so it definitely does seem to confuse people. And I go back to kind of what you said at the beginning, is that confusion is maybe not necessarily our problem. And it does not stop us from doing what we're doing, but it I think is helpful to keep repeating that for people, that we're not going to stop being who we are, and just recognize the fact that what we're doing for everyone, and it's to make us all better and stronger as a community.
Absolutely. Being ourselves helps everyone, because when you're not yourself, I mean, that takes a toll on you psychologically, you know, and that trickles into society and how we are engaging with one another. So it is absolutely imperative that everyone understand. I do not always talk like this, but I recognize we're on Facebook and other audiences are watching. After this is over, I want to change my tone, change my body language, you know, talk my sister girl talk my Gullah talk, my Ebonics, but we recognize that I think that's so beautiful about us, that we can go in to these spaces and be who and what we need to be, and that does not make me not black enough. That just makes me able to engage with whomever I'm coming in contact with. And I'm willing to do that, and we do that. They're not always willing to do that with us, but we are always the ones doing that. But it's okay, because I know from whence we came, I know who we are before we were enslaved souls. So that, you know, when you are of royalty, you know how to act accordingly for the people.
Right. We're gonna, I see a question in the back.
You know, you asked the question of why why do we need a real black experience, or why do we need black spaces? Do you ever ask them, or when your counter to them is, why aren't we in those spaces with them? And why don't they make spaces for us to be there with them?
Most times I don't ask, because we always end up in their spaces, whether we are invited or not. You know, we are sitting in our space, which is within their space. Does that make sense? We don't own Flagstaff.
But
We don't.
built Flagstaff. But we built Flagstaff.
But we built mostly all places that we are in, right? But and so that's where now and I don't really like to have these conversations in public. Those are conversations that we've got to have amongst ourselves about. Now that takes us to that collective economics, because why don't we own the Murdoch? Why don't we own this community, these homes that surround the Murdoch? Why could this not be a black community within Flagstaff? And so those are those conversations that we need to have during the next 365 days.
And I just want to say something that I think is pretty important. You know, the Live Black Experience Project, in my mind, really is not for us. Most black people already know, at least in some respect, their history, where they came from, the struggle, the need to adapt, and those things, right? The Live Black Experience Project is for everybody else. Because the Live Black Experience is America's lived experience, right? Black history is American history, is the world's history. So I do think that, we need to make sure people understand that, right? So when we're talking about, for example, enslaved persons, most of us already know that story, right? We know that story by heart. When we're talking about, MLK, when we're talking about Marcus Garvey, when we're talking about why the Black Panther is important to us, most of us already get that, who are of African descent. The reason why we're having these public dialogues and conversations is to help educate everybody else who doesn't know what tone policing is, who doesn't know about why there is a fear driving while black, who doesn't know the importance of the way we wear our hair and why we wear our hair that way, right? Those are the reasons why we're having these dialogues, because we already have these dialogues amongst ourselves in our homes, at the kitchen table, at the barber shop, right? Over there on the court. We already know that. So I think it's really important that we tell people, we're not doing this for you. When we talk about the importance of civil rights, we are not asking for just us to have civil rights. We're asking for civil rights for everybody. When we say that voting is important, we're not saying, hey, we want to vote just for us. We're saying voting is, we want everybody to be able to vote. I do think that that is something that is unique to the African American Black experience, is that when we speak and ask for something, it is never just for us. It is always for the collective good of the community. It's as if we are the moral compass that says if we're going to do life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then everybody should have it. So I just wanted to make sure I spoke to those things.
That is so on point. Thank you, Sister Dr. Coral Evans, so that everyone watching by Facebook will know who that voice is, and that is so true. And I long for the day that when we can acknowledge that all life comes out of a Kibulan, that all life comes out of Africa, that those first bones of human life were found in Ethiopia. Now, last I checked,
That's Africa.
that's Africa. And so, these other people who are our brothers and sisters, a bit out of order, and perhaps that's because they left home, and we stayed back and we learned and we nurtured others in what it means to be human. And so the day that we recognize that the color of our skin is only an indication of where you are from on the planet, but your life began in Akibaland. So we are all Africans. And so I think for those of us who stayed behind, it seems to be that's just the way we are. That we are concerned for the collective, for everyone, because we know and recognize that if you okay, I'm good. If you good, we all good. And so I think there's definitely something to be learned from this lived Black experience.
Speaking of, as we talk about cooperative economics and some of what we do as the Live Black Experience group, and I know we're going to have another conversation about this coming up very soon, but one of the projects that the Live Black Experience group started months ago was the Black Artisan Marketplace. And we found ourselves having to change the name because people took issue with it being called a Black Artisan Marketplace. So we shifted it to a multicultural artisan marketplace. But I'm curious, what makes the idea of a Black artisan marketplace in Flagstaff so threatening an idea or problematic an idea? And how do we respond to that? We obviously had a response as a group, which was to say this truly is for everyone. So we'll change the name if it encourages more people to participate in it. But what is the response to that sense of it having been threatening in the first place, I guess?
First of all, did we change it to a multicultural artisan?
We did.
Yes.
Oh,
It's now it's now Southside Community and Cultural Market, because it will bring this up in our future community dialogue. Don't say Black, because calling it a Black artisan marketplace, people did not understand that it was to spotlight Black artists here in Flagstaff. It was to put a focus, bring attention to that there are Black entrepreneurs. You're sitting in the room with several of us here, and Black artists. It was not exclusive, it's actually inclusive. However, putting the spotlight on that and saying Black, that's an issue. Whereas you do have the Indigenous Artist Marketplace, because I am involved in several community organizations that promote multicultural or other cultures. I volunteered at the Celtic Festival. There's never an issue when you say Indigenous or Celtic Festival or anything like that. But as soon as we put out Black, Coral was accosted in the grocery store. People took issue. I'm reading over Facebook comments about Kwanzaa. There seems to be an issue with that. So yes, we did change it.
so once again, anything Black is a problem. And I'm just going to put something out there about Black. I struggle in my brain with Black. I don't use white. I prefer to use European American. Black is a color. Last I checked, and I'm wearing Black today. But yet I don't see anyone in this room that looks Black. Literally. Because I think Black and white is a literal term. Would we have a problem, or would they, these people who have a problem, if it were, and we should try it, if this is the African American or African or an African American market, artisan market? Do we have a problem with the name Black, white? And I have to say I do, because I think Black and white are divisive. When I was growing up, it seems like the European Americans were proud to say, I'm Polish, I'm Italian, I'm German, I'm Mexican, I'm Guatemalan, I'm Cubano. But regardless of how or what how we want to describe ourselves, it seems like if it's anything coming out of the mother continent, it's going to be a problem. I will just say I'm happy I don't have a say in that, because it would continue to be the black artisan market. Um, I don't think anyone, and that's what this is why we come together to write our own narrative, because I think to change that, and I love my sisters that are here, and we all work together in this Lived Black Experience project. I think if we thought more like Isa or Yeshua, however you choose to describe him or call him, Jesus, he said, I didn't come here for everyone. I'm not here for everyone. And so if you like me, you are going to like me and follow me, and you see what I'm trying to do. I'm about the people, trying to save the people, do something good, teach them something better. Come follow me. If that's not for you, then don't come. You don't have to be a part of this. So I
It's called Community and Culture Market. Southside Community and Culture.
Okay. Next question.
Moving on.
Oh, Dr. T's.
But I think that kind of goes back to the question of when people get upset that they hear about the Live Black experience, or when they come across, Dr. Evans about Kwanzaa. Why is it that we back down and don't fight for the spaces that basically say, yes, this is a black space, of which it is inclusive. You are able to come into this space and learn about those things that impact or impart of black, I'm going to say African American culture. We got a debate going on back here about the name. Black and African American culture in such a way, because I only say that when whoever wrote the book about Flagstaff and talked about how wonderful the founding fathers and families of Flagstaff were, they did not talk about the Black, Native, and Hispanic Latin contributions to Flagstaff. So we have to talk about it, because they don't recognize it, don't want to reflect it, or only see it in certain ways. So I'm kind of like with you, and I know my sisters that are here, I go back and call this the Black Artisan, collective or whatever. And then it's for them to come in and find out about what it is. And like you said, if it's not for you, then it's not for you. But if you want to learn about it, then you can come in here and learn about what they're specifically talking about, what they're selling, or what they're producing. And so I guess comment, question, I don't see why we're backing down.
Right.
And again, this is a vibrant community that when you know the history of Black Flagstaff, and you know how they came here, and you know what that they did to help get Flagstaff to be there, that should be always a conversation on every person's lips and minds about Flagstaff. It shouldn't have to just be in these spaces, but it is, because when you go across the tracks, when they couldn't go across the tracks back in the day, or when you go into council, or when you go into any of the cultural elite, they don't talk about Black Flagstaff. Even when they have little members, they might have some representation, but it's not on that person to always talk about their experiences. It should be the overall, I think, nature of the town, or the places and spaces to do that. And if not, then therefore, we have to celebrate the Murdoch for what the Murdoch is.
Can I add to that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think part of that, quite frankly, then, is the collectiveness, right? That we as a people need to display more of us. Because you're right, there are individuals in certain spaces, but they are there by themselves. And it is hard at times for them to do what it is they are there to do and then have to carry the entire Black experience to help educate people at the same time. And this is where the community needs to play a part, right? So the community needs to show up at certain meetings. Okay, so even if there's one person in that space, that person needs the support of the community to say this, to do this, to do this, to do that. And I think that that's part of the concept of how do we take Kwanzaa and live it all year long, right? That means if there's one person there, maybe someone else needs to show up, right? Maybe someone else needs to be a part of it. You know, when it comes to, for example, the comments that were being made on Facebook about this event, right? It would have been nice if other people had been weighing in. You know, Kwanzaa was literally called the event of Satan.
Or the children of Satan.
Or the children of Satan or something, right? And so, yeah, you know, there's some of us that can regulate that, but it'd be nice if it was not always the same people regulating that, right? And carrying the flag and walking with the flag and things like that. So.
The children of Satan.
So I have pulled the question on Nia purpose, because I think that's a good one to close with. So talking about Kuumba and creativity, you spoke about Hollywood, and it made me think pretty instantly of Viola Davis's production company and the work that she had to go through to get the film The Woman King put out. And we did an LBE on that film specifically, and talked a lot about the critical response to it, I guess. So at the same time as The Woman King did well, and it was called a surprising box office success, there was another film, and I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Don't Worry, Darling, or one of those, where it was considered a surprising that it didn't do better. And so it was just this weird dichotomy between, like, why was it a surprise that The Woman King did as well as it did? But speaking specifically about Kuumba and doing all that we can to make our community more beautiful and more beneficial than how it was given to us, what does it mean for us to share our stories both uniquely for ourselves and also universally for everyone, that everyone can get something from Black stories, even as we're telling them to bolster our community itself?
It shows we are here too. There is not one European American story that we do not know or are not familiar with. It's their world, right? We're just here. The reality is, until we collect and strengthen and unify ourselves, that we, and that is what we're seeking to do. This is what we get up and seek to do every day, whether you want to acknowledge that or not. We all want to be accepted and acknowledged. That is just human nature. But we as a people still are seeking to have our stories told, to other than our struggles and our defeats. We're still seeking to be find our places in history alongside Cleopatra, who was not African, but was in Africa. So we're seeking to tell the truth about Nefertiti, who was African, about Candace Queen and Solomon, who were African. we're seeking to tell the truth, to set the record straight about who are on those walls. There are colored people on those walls. Who created the science or the mortuary sciences, the first computer, the first bathroom, all in Akibaland, all in Africa. We're seeking to set the record straight, but we're looking to do that with people who have taken the credit. And they ain't trying to give it up or set the record straight. So when we talk about purpose, it is only natural for a human being to want to have its place in society. And we are here in this society. And whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we were taken from a very structured and civilized society and brought here. And now we're trying to fit in, make a way, find a way, and it's not always easy, and we're still battling in our minds because we know what is right. Every human knows what is right. That's just innate in a human. Now the question is, what type of human are you? Are you one that is moral? Because a moral human being is concerned about all peoples in the society in which they live, all peoples, and will celebrate all peoples and acknowledge all peoples. Not try to hold them back, shut them down, hush them up, kill them if we must. We will truly live and let live, and it seems like somebody does not want somebody to live. And it appears as though those who are determined to live, self-determination, they are going to live. You've tried to kill us, we still here. We overcoming this diabetes and these cancers, and we're surviving the prison system, although it's not good, but we ain't dying. So when you talk about self-determination and purpose, you have a system that's trying to hide this from a group of people, but they yet still seem to be overcoming in spite of. And I forgot your question. I'm sorry, but that message needed to come through that at the end of the day, we have always been a people of purpose, because that's in us. And we keep reproducing purpose and self-determination. And it does not seem like it is going to change. And so at some point, the others are going to have to come to that conclusion and decide, are we truly going to live in unity and let everyone be themselves? You tried to shape us into something, but God already made us. You can't remake us. So let people be themselves. Let people have their spaces, because you all have your spaces, and we're not always trying to be in your spaces like that. Not always. And it is important that everyone have some space and time to themselves. And then we know how to come together when it's time to come together, but we don't have to be together like that. Togetherness is recognizing you need some time and space to yourself right now. You need a moment to yourself, because we all do. So the different cultures are beautiful, but you can't stop this culture. And why are you doing that? I know why, but I can't say, and I will not say. That's something for another day. But it's going to be, whether you want it to be or not. And we have got to decide that we are going to stand firm in who and what we are. And those that embrace that and accept that, thank you, Sister Gretchen, for being here today, will let you be that, and will celebrate that and respect that and love and honor that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. In terms of faith and believing not only in our people, but also in the righteousness and the victory of our struggle as a people, two questions. First, what do we say to those who say that our struggles as a people would be over if we would just get over it?
We are over it. You still stuck.
That part.
We are over it. We're doing us as best as we can. As much as you will let us be, just leave us alone and let us do our stuff. We're not harping on we were enslaved souls. We live that. We carry that with us every day. That does not mean that you're harping on it. We carry that. That is a part of who and what we are. Just leave us alone and let us be. Let us be executives. Let us be bankers. Let us be real estate moguls. English is my second language. So let us do that. You came here to America to do that. You've been allowed to do that in a place that was not originally yours. So let us find a way to do and be and have access to things in a place that is not originally yours. Topic for another day.
All right, I believe we may be running out of time, or we are over time. So I just have two quotes that I wanted to share that spoke, I think, a lot to what we've talked about today. The first is from Marcus Garvey, and he says, "A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." And then Carter G. Woodson said, "If a race has no history, it has no worthwhile tradition. It becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated." So for me, it seems that what we're talking about in practicing the principles of Kwanzaa, 365 days a year, is we're talking about finding our roots, rooting ourselves, and not being just taken out of the equation. So the final question is really one that I think is for all of us, and it's, what are the ways for us to live out our purpose and to live out the principles of Kwanzaa, all the principles of Kwanzaa, actively throughout the year? And maybe that's one that we just take with us and think about. One of the things that I do every year, especially since one of the last times that we did Kwanzaa as a group, was look at each of the principles and figure out, how can I apply this throughout the rest of my year? We started the Kuumba 365 project, and looking at, you know, how can we express Black creativity throughout the year and just find those ways of self-expression. I think that is a way for us to maintain that faith and not get burned out living the struggle every year, is to find those creative outlets. But if we can all just think about how we can live these principles all year long and how we can apply each one individually to ourselves, that will help us carry this forward. Any closing words for us?
Go in grace.